You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, it's me again, and welcome back to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. It's been a bit of a chastening few days, and to be honest, I've been a little bit humbled by the weather. And that's not something I say normally. It's kind of surprised me, really. Generally, Trigger and I have managed our hike pretty well when it comes to avoiding too much rain, but this past few days have seen rain and rocks, which is such a lethal combination. Anybody who's ever done this will think about those rocks, and just getting any rain on them really makes them, in a lot of cases, slick. And you never can really tell which part's wet and which part isn't. Now, there are prescribed get-outs or blue blaze trails that avoid the rocks in wet weather. So, we could get out of those, but so far we haven't taken any of them. I'm not sure how much longer we can safely continue to do that. I didn't take any of them in 2014, and I haven't taken any this time. We just have to see how it goes. But before we get to it, though, let's hear from our great sponsor, Sawyer.
When I hit the trail in 2014, I soon discovered that I'd come with the wrong water filter. Everybody else had a Sawyer squeeze. Eventually, I bought a squeeze, and I loved it. I'm going again this year, and top of my list of things to buy was the new micro squeeze filter by Sawyer. Like all Sawyer stuff, it just works. You can filter up to 100,000 gallons, and their full-size squeeze filter comes with a lifetime warranty. Last year, believe it or not, more than 4 million people got clean water through a Sawyer water filter. But if you think that Sawyer is just about water filters, you could not be more wrong. Nope, they supply everything to protect you, both in the backcountry and the backyard. Protect your gear and clothes as I did with their permethrin fabric treatment, which is 100% odorless after drying. With all the ticks and bugs around, this is an absolute must. They also provide sunscreens and first aid products. Find out more by visiting Sawyer.com.
Thanks so much, guys. Moving on, let's hear how these 3 days have unfolded. If you recall, the last time we were together, we left Cushy and Dodger Dog at the secret shelter as Trigger and I were zeroing last Sunday for the US Open Golf Championship. Actually, it's really for me, I know, but Trigger's pretty good like that. So, for day number 112, we headed back to the road where we'd been picked up and headed north from the secret shelter. Here's what happened. Day 112, the secret shelter, mile 1345.1 to Way Way Under shelter, mile 1363.7, an 18.6 mile day. We were staying at the motel to watch the golf, and we'd found a place down the road which served breakfast, a really excellent place, by the way, good diner called, I forgot what it's called now, but it was a lovely place. And so we'd already arranged with our Uber driver from the previous day to come and collect us, or actually from Saturday, to come and collect us at 8 a.m. from the diner, take us back to the motel to collect our packs, and then take us back to the trail. Quite why the motel owner didn't want us to take our packs down to the restaurant, I have no idea, but that was the arrangement. So she came and picked us up at 8 o'clock, got our packs, headed back to the trail. This was a day of diverse hiking with rocks, flats, and even a boardwalk. And so I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. It was quite downhill for a while, and then there was a mile, actually it was less than a mile, road walk across the Wallkill River. And I recalled this from last time, and then entering the Wallkill River Wildlife Refuge. It's a really large circuit around marshes and ponds. It's a straight, it feels like a straight mile walk, and then a straight half mile walk to the left, and then a straight mile walk to the right. Like you're going around 3 sides of a rectangle, but you can hear all these bullfrogs making noises, and you've got a beautiful sight. The birds are migrating. This is where migrating birds are. it's just a very peaceful scene. Well, apart from the bullfrogs, of course, which make a heck of a noise. But it's lovely to see something different than just a green tunnel. But from the refuge, we then plunged back into the forest and we're up and over more rocks with a few views and then down to the southern end of the Pochuck Boardwalk. This is a beautifully built boardwalk, which must be used by a lot of locals because we saw quite a few locals walking it. Across more marshland, and it was lovely. And I can't remember what was actually growing in the fields, but it was very high. And there was a worker, a guy, once again I'm sure a volunteer, with a strimmer, just taking down some of the stuff that was growing, just to keep it nice and open and clear for people walking the boardwalk. Yet again, we stopped and thanked him, but yet again, you're struck by people's kindness and the time they take to make this such a fantastic experience for all hikers. You are partway through the boardwalk, quite a long way through the boardwalk, you cross the Pochuck Creek on a large suspension bridge before continuing on the boardwalk yet again to the road, and just up from the road, there's a farm shop called Heaven Hill Farm, where we all sat down and had food. I seem to remember I got some ice cream and a drink and just hung out with Trigger and a couple of other hikers who turned up as well. After that, we were still heading for the Way Under shelter, and we had a walk through a cow pasture first before we eventually started climbing up again. When we got to the top, it was another 4 miles or so of kind of rocky terrain, and that terrain was quite wearing. New York has been. We're still in New Jersey, by the way, weren't we? Yes, we're still in New Jersey here. New Jersey has been rocky in the same way, that in a different way rather, to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania rocks were so sharp. New Jersey rocks are less plentiful, but they're still there and they still give you a few problems. This was a dry day, and so we hadn't had any of the problems I was talking about earlier in terms of wet rocks. So it was fine. We knew there was weather coming up, and the forecast for weather was 80 or 90% rain, in the next few days. So we knew we were going to get caught by some of it. And we got up to the Way Under shelter with a bunch of people at the shelter already. So Trigger and I set our tents up. We were expecting rain overnight, but we thought, we haven't had too often to have to sleep in our tents with the rain. But this was going to be one of those nights, we thought. And there were a number of people at the shelter, and there was a young girl who only looked about 13 or 14, and I I apologised to her if she thinks that's an insult. It's not meant to be. Her name was Kezia, rather. She's just out of high school, so I thought, well, she'd be somebody interesting to talk to. So I sat down on a log and chatted with Kezia.
Okay, I'm sitting on a log here with a young lady, and I'm going to try to say her name. She just told me it's Kezia Burkholder.
Yeah.
Not bad. Otherwise known as Lost Keys. Mm-hmm. So tell me then, you're just out of high school, is that right?
Yes.
And what on earth are you doing out on the trail just out of high school?
It's just something I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. My brother-in-law did it right out of high school as well, and that's
really?
kind of, the inspiration for it.
All right. How long ago was that?
In 2009.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And and the stories he was telling you, that inspired you more to do it, did it?
Well, it was more before he did it, when he was explaining what he was going to do. It just seemed like kind of a really amazing, impossible thing, and he was going to go attempt it. And it still does, even out here climbing up those mountains. It seems impossible, but then when you get to the top and you realize you've just done something you didn't think you could do,
it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is. Now, you haven't explained this to me, so this is going to be news to me as well. Your name is Lost Keys.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with losing keys?
No, because my name's Kezia. My nickname is Keys.
Oh.
Okay. And I have a pretty bad sense of direction.
Right.
When I was going into Unionville the other day, this man and his wife, they saw me from their porch looking around very confused because I just walked into town and didn't realize, I actually made it to Unionville. And then later on in the day, he actually met me at the general store. And I told him my name, and he said, I have the perfect trail name for you.
It is absolutely perfect. That's really good. I really like it. So tell us then, you are just out of high school. Mm-hmm. Is that why you're doing a flip-flop, because you had to finish high school first?
Yes. I was planning on starting in Maine and going south originally, right. But then Baxter State Park closed. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that was kind of disappointing. But yeah, that's pretty much why.
Now, you've told us something while we were sitting around the table. You're keeping a written log on this, aren't you?
Yes.
And you love poetry, don't you? Mm-hmm. So and I said to you, I think a book of poems about and from the Appalachian Trail would be a wonderful thing to do. Has the nature you've seen so far, and I know you've not been on it that long, mm-hmm. Has the nature you've seen so far been inspiring for you?
Yes, it has been very inspiring. Some things negatively inspiring, but some things are also, I don't know, it's just different out here. It's very peaceful, it's very quiet, and it's so much slower than normal everyday life. And so,
it is, isn't it? It really is, yeah.
It's great.
So what's negatively inspiring?
The whippoorwills, mostly. They keep me awake at night.
They're a nightmare, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Whippoorwill, 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 with no end in sight, is there?
No, same thing over and over again.
But the idea of writing poetry, I think, would be a really good thing to do, and I think you should really think about that. So you're doing a flip-flop, yes. And you started where?
In Port Clinton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, because you're from Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So you gave yourself the toughest state first, or part of the toughest state first, don't you? Was it tougher than you thought it would be, or have you actually hiked around these mountains before?
Well, I haven't hiked around these specific mountains before, but I've done a lot of Pennsylvania territory, so it's kind of a familiar feel. Right. So it's not as hard as a lot of people make it out to be, I think.
Oh my gosh, it is. It totally is.
In the rain, it's pretty hard. I'm slipping and sliding around on the rocks.
Have you gone over much? Have you fallen?
Yeah, I've fallen.
Really?
Quite a bit, yeah.
Oh, right. So,
I'm a bit clumsy.
Oh, right. Well, that's kind of one of those things, I guess. So when do you expect to be able to finish? Because you're heading from Port Clinton to Maine, and then you're coming back to Port Clinton and then heading south. Yep. With that huge climb out of Port Clinton going south. Because I remember coming into it, it was a nightmare.
Going south from Port Clinton? Mm-hmm. Well, that's not so bad. I've done that a few times.
Good for you. Going down, it wasn't good at all, let me tell you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, going down that part, that's really hard on the knees. But going up, it's not so bad.
So as a young 18-year-old woman, what was your parents' reaction to you doing this? Were they quite supportive?
Yeah, they were very supportive. My dad mostly was very supportive. He was very disappointed that he couldn't come with me. He's really into hiking. Wow. He's all about me going out and seizing my dreams. Because he's disappointed that he hasn't been able to seize many of his dreams of late. But yeah, my mom was a little bit scared for me, but she's also very supportive as well.
Will your dad be able to come and join you on the trail at all for any of it?
Some of my family members want to come hike Katahdin with me. There's a few of them that have done it.
Oh, right.
I'm certain that my mom is definitely fit enough to do it, and my dad, he'll push through it.
Well, I'm pleased to meet you, and I'm certainly pleased to learn that lost keys is nothing to do with losing keys.
Yeah, no.
And I just wish you well on the rest of your hike.
Well, thank you very much.
Cheers.
Day 113, way under shelter, mile 1363.7, to New York 17A, mile 1373.8, just a 10.1 mile day. What a day this was. we really haven't had to cope with much rain, and we knew it was going to rain. And so the night was fine. It didn't rain overnight at all. It's funny, actually, the weather keeps moving from the middle of the country to the east coast, and then the rain, which is promised all the time, seems to dissipating. Well, it didn't this time. It just went straight through us. And I got up about 5:15, and I was ready to have breakfast. We were sitting down, just finishing breakfast, I don't know, about 6:15, something like that, as the rain started. So we knew we had it, and it wasn't very strong, but it was raining. So we packed up as the rain started, and it's pretty miserable when you do that. But frankly, the best thing to do is to get started, to keep yourself warm. Then you've got this combination when you're going uphill of sweat and rain and the whole 9 yards, And so as we started up, there were rocks to climb on, and of course, this combination of rain and rock is just horrendous. And it proved to be horrendous all day long. And 4 miles into it, we actually crossed into New York, which was nice. We took our picture on the New York, New Jersey side. I remember taking it before. I remember coming through here before, and it was great to go across these rocks because it was dry, and the difference is phenomenal. By now, I'd put on my rain skirt at last, and I was using my umbrella, but frankly, once the rain gets going and it gets torrential, there's just nothing you can do about it. Yeah, I didn't bother with my waterproof jacket. I might as well send that home. I mean, it's good for a rain jacket, but apart from that, not a rain jacket. It's good to protect you from the wind, to help keep you warm. But really, in terms of rain, nothing keeps off. And so I was walking along with the umbrella. I haven't actually fixed it to my back yet. I'm just carrying it in my hand and holding two sticks in one hand, which probably isn't a great idea either. So I really haven't worked how to do this out, obviously. Now, the rain was getting heavier and heavier, and I mentioned before, there is this blue blaze trail around the rocks. We just don't want to do that, and I know perhaps we should do, but frankly, we were just trying to get to 17A, where we knew the creamery was, the Belleville Farms Creamery was, where we can get ice cream. But we were going to get off there as well. I fell once, which was number 16. I fell on my hip and it really hurt me, but I wasn't dead. So I shouted out, number 16. Oh my gosh, it really hurt. Trigger, though, fell 3 times. And every time you fall, I think you get this feeling that, oh my God, you sort of tense up a little bit. And he was just falling, and that's not a good thing for anybody. And he was definitely struggling with it. And, there's nothing you can do, though, and we both know this. You fall over, you've got to get on with it. You can lie there and cry if you wish, but that won't help anybody. That's why I just call out the number, get up, and try to move on. So far, it's worked with me every single time. But these were quite difficult, more difficult than I remember them being. But as I say before, I did it in the dry, and it makes so much difference when you do it in the dry. We eventually got to New York 17A, the creamery. It took us about 5.5 hours to do the 10 miles. And at our pace, that isn't great, but, it is where it is. We got there about 11:30. Maybe it wasn't as long as 5.5 hours. It must have been about 5 hours. Got there at 11:30, and they don't open till 12. So I tapped on the door, asked if we could get changed in their restroom. They said, well, there's a restroom round the side. So I went round the side with my clothes stripped right off and put on that fabulous look, which is a pair of underbits, a pair of long johns, a cotton t-shirt, and but I was dry, and my shoes, but I was dry, so that worked out for me. And as soon as you warm up, I put my puffy on, felt so much better. We were undercover. I had a chocolate malt, and then I had a banana split, so I had plenty to have. Looked on Google Maps for somewhere to stay, found a Holiday Inn Express, and we got an Uber to it. So we were dry, we were warm. Trigger, by the way, had changed as well, so we didn't really want to get into the car just drenched, but everything was utterly drenched. Trigger went and did the laundry. He's very good, Trigger, because I'm reluctant to go down there in my long johns, and there wasn't a laundry in the hotel. He took it upon himself to take the laundry and do it. And he met a guy in the laundry who just wanted to help us because we were hikers. And so he said, can I do anything for you? And Trigger said, well, we want to go to a restaurant later. Can you recommend a restaurant and perhaps drive us there? And so he said, sure. So it's about a mile's drive, something like that. Came to pick us up, took us down there, and he came in with us. He was going to eat, we thought, but he wanted just to buy us drinks. So he bought us just a couple of drinks and had a couple of drinks himself. Then he paid, and then because we were packing up by then, we were just chatting with him the whole time. Really nice man called Vince. He just drove us back to the hotel, and so we didn't have to walk back either. So very, very kind man. Really, really nice fella. And today, I felt exposed. I don't like that feeling. The rain, I don't want to take those blue blaze around those rocks. And I know I'm taking risks. And I suppose I've got to try to work out that balance between risk and reward. The reward of knowing you've done something, but the risk of falling. And one fall could literally end your hike. And it wasn't, my falls weren't over because I went again the next day. But it's one of those things I think I'm just going to have to work out. And right now, I haven't worked out the balance between risk and reward. And say, I do feel terribly exposed with this. And when you're up there, you're on these smooth rocks, and the moss and the lichen gets wet. You can't see how slippery it is until you commit yourself. Once you commit yourself, it's a little bit too late. So it was tough. And there was a lot of climbing up, which I really enjoyed, because that's hand over hand stuff. And I feel much steadier doing that. But when you're just walking along these kind of bald, huge, curved rocks at the top of the mountain, it's somewhat risky. But we did it. We finished the day, and I was okay at the end of the day. But that's the end of day number 113. Day number 114. New York 17A, mile 1373.8 to New York 17A, mile 1385.7. 11.9 miles, and yes, just through the forest and over the rocks on the same road. And we came out the same road again. So this was a day in which we really expected rain. We were looking at the forecast ahead, and this day was Wednesday, and we knew there was going to be rain. And I was thinking when I looked at the forecast that Thursday looked even worse. They were talking about dangerous storms, and I don't like the sound of that at all. So once again, we knew it was coming, and so our ambitions were definitely limited. And in this case, we ended up doing 11.9 miles, which wasn't too bad. We're trying to do this 12.5 miles a day as our target. Anything more than that, we get bonuses. If we do 15, we got 2.5 miles bonus. And if we do 10, we get 2.5 miles debit. At the moment, and I haven't actually told any of you this before, we're about 90 miles ahead of that schedule to finish on the 31st of August, which means we're probably going to finish the 26th, I suspect, something like the 26th of August. And I'm pretty pleased with that, to be honest with you. So we're expecting this this rain to come. So we got an Uber again back to the AT via the creamery, and the guy led us out, and it was still lovely. So there was no rain. It looked like it was going to rain all day long. There was no rain at all when we dropped off. And we went into the forest, and you start walking basically parallel to the road to the right, pretty flat for about a mile, I think it is, maybe a mile and a bit. And then we start climbing, and then we hit the eastern pinnacles. And the eastern pinnacles are basically large rocks that we had to walk across with more blue blaze bypasses. And once again, we both, we looked at each other, and just carried on up the white blaze. So I was going to go first, and I put one foot up on a ledge, and then I put my other foot up on the ledge and fell straight over onto my hip again. Man, it was soft to fall, but it hurt me again because it was right on my hip. And I thought, this is not a good start. This is such a quandary at the moment. The bypasses are legal, and they would count for and by legal, I mean, people recognise that in inclement weather, you should not really be going over those rocks. And they would count for the AT hike, but it just doesn't seem right to us to miss the full AT. On the other hand, that bad fall, which could end our hike. I'd love to do these rocks in the dry, but it doesn't always work that way. And New York is suddenly becoming a more difficult state because of that rain. There are other states where we've gone through in rain and didn't really make much difference apart from our feet getting wet and it was muddy, and that perhaps made it risky as well. But the combination of slippery rocks and falling on slippery rocks, man, that's a different can of worms, whatever you call it. So we kept getting the phone out to check the upcoming weather because we were expecting the weather to hit us about, about 12:30, and it didn't. The future weather on the Weather Channel was showing, then it was 2:30, then it was 3:30, then it was 5:30. So it was being pushed back the whole time. So it was staying dry for us, but those rocks were still damp. And so we started thinking about going further than the 12 miles that we actually did. We were considering going on to another place where we could also have hit 17A. But when I looked at the notes on Guthooks, it says there was no access, phone access and service to be able to call an Uber or call a hotel or whatever. So once again, we had to manage this the way in which we wanted to manage it, I guess. I think I'd already decided that's what I was going to do. It was just getting too risky that we'd end up somewhere getting soaked and no way to get out. And so we didn't want to do that. And the other thing to consider was that there was a shelter ahead of us, but that has an aggressive bear and they recommend you don't stop there. So, our choices were even more limited than they normally are. They're normally fairly limited. So the climb down to 17A was frightening. And I remember doing this in 2014. I called a shuttle from the top of the mountain thinking I'd be 5 minutes to get down. I turned this corner and it's almost vertical. Because there are a lot of climbing up hand over hand stuff to get up there on the south side going north. And as you would probably guess, there's a lot of hand over hand climbing on the north side going south. Or in our case, going north, going down. So it was really, really tricky to get down there. And because I'd fallen, once again, you have that feeling that, this is not good. It gives you nerves to a degree. And I just want to make sure I get down safely. And so I took a long time getting down, and so did Trigger, and we got down safely down that climb down. And I eventually made it in one piece. So we decided to call it a day at 17A where we were back after those 11 miles and to go back to the Holiday Inn Express. We negotiated a much better price than they were advertising, so that was good for both Thursday and Friday for both Wednesday night and Thursday night, because Thursday was forecast to be even worse with dangerous storms. So we were going to zero on the Thursday and hope for better weather Friday, but looking at the weather forecast now, there's a 50% chance of rain on Friday. So I don't know what to say. It is one of those things. We were down at the bottom, and this is very helpful. People still put these water bottles out. The water in this stretch of New York is brown. Someone said it's tannin, whatever that is. I think you have that in wine, so you think I'd kind of like that. But your water's brown. It's not desperately attractive. And people turn up and leave at the entrances to the where the road, the trailhead is. They leave bottles of water, and we filled up with bottles of water there, which is very kind of them. And while we were doing that, Turd Ferguson, Sharktooth and Firefly called us just before the road. And when we talked to them about it, the weather, they all three said straight away, we're going to do the same. So we all crammed into an Uber and headed for the Holiday Inn Express. And Trigger was able to talk the owners down to the same price that we had for those guys. So we all did pretty well there. And we went out to dinner. It was really nice. 5 of us sitting around chatting. Expensive dinner, but why not? It was. We were safe. We were warm. We were dry. So that was the end of day number 114. That was Wednesday night, and that was Wednesday rather. And I'm sitting here now thinking to myself, what's it going to be like tomorrow? But we're going to have to find out. To a certain degree, getting humbled by the weather isn't as bad as it may seem. In fact, it kind of is a pretty useful thing to happen to us. You've got to respect the rocks and the weather, and it may be that we're going to take a blue blaze tomorrow. I just don't know. I do know, though, that a fall is something that I want to avoid, and that the trail is providing me with an out. I just don't want to take those outs right now. I may be wrong with this, and if anybody's got an opinion on how they treat these things and how they look at these things, I'd love to hear from them. I really would. Just email me. And as with all our decisions out here, we make them on the fly, and currently Trigger and I are in agreement on what we want to do. So let's see how long that lasts and see if there are any changes to that. I'll see you next time.